Hello and welcome to the fifth part of this Pygame tutorial. Today we are going to be adding enemies to our map. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to our sprites.py and we're going to create a new class. We're going to call it class enemy. Pygame.sprite.sprite. Then we are going to define initialize. And then with this we need to do parameters game, x, and y. Later on we'll add enemy type, but for now this is all we're going to bring in. So self.game equals game, self._layer equals enemy layer. Of course we have to create this in our config file, so let's go up here to config.py. We'll do enemy layer, and we'll set this at 2 just to draw it right above our ground. So just to keep this organized, let's go ahead and move this up on top so we can kind of see the way our layers are being built. So let's go back to sprites. Let's do self.groups equals self.game.allsprites and self.game.enemies. That way when it updates, it'll update it under all sprites and it'll update it under enemies. But we have to create this too. So with that we need to go to main, and then under new, let's just put it right under the trees. So self.enemies equals pygame.sprite.layeredUpdates. Then we'll go back to our sprites.py, enter, we do pygame.sprite.sprite.initialize self.groups. Then we are going to do self.x, self.y equals x times tile size, comma, y times tile size. So that's just setting our x and y to these. So now we'll do self.width, comma, self.height equals tile size, comma, tile size. It just sets our enemies as the size of the tile, which is 32 by 32. Then we do self.exchange and self.yChange equals 0 and 0. Self.facing equals random.choice. We can do left or right. What this does is this creates a list of left or right, and then it's going to randomly select it for the initial facing, but then it'll go left or right from there. But at the start we want it to just randomly select which way it's going to go. That way everything's not doing the same. So then we want to do self.animation loop equals 1, and self.movement loop equals 0. Self.max travel equals random.randint for random integer, and we're going to have a random value of 7 to like 30. So we'll tell it how far it can go into its own boundaries. So next we'll do self.image equals self.game.enemy sprite sheet. Let's go ahead and create this because we haven't created this yet. So we need to go back to our main, and then in our initialize we need to pull in this sprite sheet. First we need to actually bring it in to our game. So I've provided a link below. You can download it. It should pull you to a screen like this. You just right click, save image as, go to the folder that your game's in, and then just save it as enemy PNG image. Click save. Now it should populate in your project folder. So then we will go ahead and bring it in. So we'll do self.enemy sprite sheet equals sprite sheet, then enemy.png. Now we should be able to go back to our sprites, and let's pick up where we left off. So we'll do enemy sprite sheet.getSprite. Then we'll do, let's look at it. It looks like we got a little bit of gap off the wall. So I already know where we're going to start on the pixel. So you can just trust me, or you can go and look at it yourself. But for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to punch in the coordinates that I know, which are 3, 2, 3, 2. Then we are going to do self.width and self.height. Oops, I missed a comma here. So if you'll notice, our background on our enemy is black, so we want to ignore that so it appears transparent. So with that, we'll do self.image.setColorKey, and we'll do black. Then we want to make sure that it recognizes our edges like it's a rectangle, so we'll do self.rect, self.image, get rect, then self.rect.x, comma, self.rect.y equals self.x, comma, self.y. Combining the variables. Then, of course, we want it to be animated, so we have to create an enemy animation, and we want to put in self. We haven't created this yet, so we got to go to our animations.py, and let's go down to the bottom, define enemy animation, self, and we need to do self.left animation equals, and we have to bring in all of the pieces according to how we want to animate it. So I already know the coordinates, and we've already went through the animation steps, so I'm just going to run through this real quick. I already know the coordinates, so I'm going to punch them in here. With copy, paste, just change the coordinates. 35, 98, 98. Okay, now we want to do the same for right animation. So with that, we'll do self, right animation. This will do 366, self.width, self.height, comma, copy these, 35, 68. So now we've got our images pulled off of our enemy sheet according to the coordinates. So now we need to actually animate it. So let's define enemy. If self.facing double equals left, and if self.x change double equals 0, then self.image equals self.game.enemy sprite sheet get sprite 3, 98, self.width, self.height. This just sets a stationary image. So else, so if it's moving, self.image equals self.left animation, math.floor, self.animation loop. So whatever part our animation loop we're on, it's going to pull in that image according to this. So self.animation loop plus equals, so it'll add, and then we'll do 0.1. Every time it runs through this, it'll add 0.1, then it'll round it down by math.floor to give you which image it's selecting. So if self.animation loop greater than or equal to 3, then we want it to reset. So then we'll do self.animation loop equals 1. And of course we want it to do the same stuff for the right. So we'll just copy all this, Control C, Control V, and just go in here, change this to right. We need this to be to 66. We need it to run the right animation. And that should be it for this. So let's go back to sprites, our enemy, and now we need to create an update. So def update self.movement, which we haven't created yet. So let's type pass so that we can skip through this without an error. And let's go ahead and create our movement first. So let's do define movement, self, if self.facing double equals left, then we're going to make it appear to be moving. So we'll do self.exchange minus equals enemy speed which we haven't created that variable yet either. So let's go to our config file. And you're welcome to toy around with the speed if you want to, but for now we're just going to set it at like 2. So enemy speed equals 2. And then we will go back to our sprites, cleared out the error. Now we'll do self.movement loop minus equals 1. Then if self.movement loop less than or equal to self.max travel, meaning whatever it randomly selects for our max travel, then we will do self.facing equals right. If it's going left, it's going to go at the enemy speed. Once it reaches its maximum travel, it's going to turn around. And so now we need the same for the right. So we'll do if self.facing double equals right, then self.exchange plus equals enemy speed, because it's going to be adding to it instead of subtracting like the left did. Self.movement loop plus equals 1 instead of minus equals. Then if self.movement loop is greater than or equal to self.max travel, then we will turn it around to face left again. So facing equals left. So before we do our update, let's go ahead and create our animation. So we'll do def animate self, and then we will just do enemy animation animate self. So now we'll go back up to our update. We'll do self.movement. We'll do self.animate. Do self.rect.x plus equals self.exchange. It'll appear to be moving. Self.rect.y plus equals self.y change. And then we need to reset our x and y changes back. So we'll do self.exchange, comma, self.y change equals 0, 0. So now we've completed all of this. Now we need to actually plug them into our map. So let's go to our maps, and let's just set enemy up here. So we'll call it E for enemy. And let's place a couple in here. So we'll do there, and then right over here. So we're going to call them E for enemy. So now we need to go to our map build, and we need to do if column equals E, then we need to do enemy, self, J, and I for our coordinates, and that should be it. So now let's see if our enemies show up on our map. We got them, but they stopped. So we got to figure out what we did. Okay, so what I did is I forgot to set this as negative max travel. So it basically takes the distance that it's allowed to travel and it just replaces it with a negative because it's going left. So let's try that out again. Now they are going left and right. We have no real interaction with them yet, but we need to have it where whenever we get hit by them, we get killed, or we can actually attack them as well. We'll work on that on the next part. So I hope you're enjoying. If you do, make sure to give it a like and a subscribe so that we can continue building this game together. Thank you.